Well, now, here's my problem, Governor. Listen, I didn't put him in the university, but on the other hand, under the Constitution, I have to carry out the orders of that order out. I don't want to do it in any way that causes difficulty to you or to anyone else, but I've got to do it. Now, I'd like to get your help in doing that.
Yes. Well, have you talked with Attorney General this morning?
Yeah, I talked to him, and in fact, I just met with him for about an hour, and we went over the situation.
Didn't he and Mr. Watkins have a talk this morning, and Tom Watkins, the lawyer from Jackson, or not?
Yes, he talked to Tom Watkins, he told me.
Yes. Well, I don't know if I have a chance to talk.
Now, just wait just for 1 minute, because I got the Attorney General in the outer office, and I'll just speak to him.
All right.
Hello, Governor.
Yes,
I just talked to the Attorney General. Now, he said that he talked to Mr. Watkins, and the problem is as to whether we can get some help in getting this fellow in this week.
Yeah.
Now, evidently, we couldn't. The Attorney General didn't feel that he and Mr. Watkins had reached any final agreement on that.
Well, Mr. President, Mr. Watkins is going to fly up early tomorrow morning.
Right.
And could you gentlemen talk with him tomorrow?
Yes, I'll have the Attorney General talk to him, and then after they finish talking, I'll talk to the Attorney General on the phone, and then if he feels it's useful for me to meet with him, I'll do that.
I thought they were making some progress. I didn't know.
Well, now,
I couldn't say, you know.
if he and Mr. Watkins, they can meet tomorrow. Now, the difficulty is we got 2 or 3 problems. In the first place, what can we do to, first place is the court's order to you, which I guess is you're given until Tuesday. What is your feeling on that?
Well,
what's your position
on it? Over, Mr. President. It's a serious matter, and I want to think it over for a few days until Tuesday, anyway.
All right. Well, now let me say this.
You know what I'm up against, Mr. President. I took an oath, to abide by the laws of this state and our Constitution here and the Constitution of the United States. I'm on the spot here,
Well, now you got.
I've taken an oath to do that, and you know what our laws are with reference to it.
Yes, I understand that. But now we got
we have a statute that was enacted a couple of weeks ago, stating positively that no one who had been convicted of a crime or whether the criminal action pending against him would not be eligible for any of the institutions of higher learning. And that's our law, and it seemed like the Court of Appeals didn't pay any attention to that.
Right. Well, of course, the problem is, Governor, that I got my responsibility just like you have yours. And my responsibility, of course, is to the...
I realize that, and I appreciate that so much.
Well, now, here's the thing, Governor. I will, the Attorney General can talk to Mr. Watkins tomorrow. What I would like to do is to try to work this out in an amicable way. We don't want a lot of people down there getting hurt, and we don't want to have it's very easy
President, let me say this. They're calling me and others from all over the state, wanting to bring 1,000, wanting to bring 500, and 200, and all such as that,
I know.
We don't want such as that.
I know. Well, we don't want to have a lot of people getting hurt or killed down there.
That's correct. Mr. President, let me say this. Mr. Watkins is really an A1 lawyer, an honorable man, has the respect and the confidence of every lawyer in America who knows him. He's a law firm of Watkins and Eager. They've had an A rating for many, many years, and I believe that he can help solve this problem.
Well, I will. The Attorney General will see Mr. Watkins tomorrow, and then after the Attorney General and Mr. Watkins have finished, then I will be back in touch with you.
All right. I'll appreciate it so much now. And Watkins will leave here in the morning, and I'll have him to get in touch with the Attorney General as to when he can see him tomorrow.
Yeah, he'll see him, and
yes.
We will. Then you and I will be back and talk again.
All right.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
I appreciate your interest in our poultry program and all those things.
Well,
thank you so much.
Okay, Governor. Thank you.
Yes, sir. All right now. Thank you. All right.
Hello?
All right.
Governor?
President? Yes, sir.
Oh, will you talk to Mr. Watkins? The Attorney General did.
No, I haven't talked with him now in a couple of hours.
Oh, well, now...
I talked with him, though, about 2 hours ago, Mr. President. He said he was going to talk with the Attorney General and go see him tomorrow morning.
Oh, well, in the meanwhile, then, the Attorney General talked to Mr. Watkins to see whether there was some... wait just a second.
Yeah.
The Attorney General's right here. He'll tell you what he talked to Watkins, and Watkins is going to talk to you. Wait a minute.
All right, all right.
He'll come right on the other phone. Wait
Yes, all right, all right.
Hello?
Yes, sir. General, how are you?
Fine, Governor. How are you?
Fine, fine.
I talked to Mr. Watkins, earlier this morning.
Oh, yeah.
And he really did not have much of a suggestion. He had mentioned yesterday the possibility of our coming in tomorrow, Monday, with marshals, and that as under our understanding for Thursday, that the marshals would show up and that you and the others would step aside. Mr. Meredith would come into the university. Well, he felt when he mentioned, he talked to me today, he said that he thought that would create some problems which they could not overcome. And he suggested at that time some alternatives which were not very satisfactory.
Well,
And then he mentioned the fact that he might come up early tomorrow morning.
well,
I called him back after I heard the President's conversation with you, and said that I thought I'd be glad to see him, but I thought that unless we had some real basis for some understanding and working out this very, very difficult problem, that really he was wasting his time, and that one of the basic requirements, in my judgment, was the maintenance of law and order, and that would require some very strong and vocal action by you yourself.
well, I'm certainly going to try to maintain law and order, Mr.
Yeah.
General, just the very best way that I can.
But then
I talked with the student body the other day and told them really to have control of the physical and mental faculties, but it didn't do much good, seemed like.
well,
They cheered and carried on, but then they just started raving and carrying on,
yeah. I think, Governor, that if as a very minimum and as a start, an order by you and the state that people could not congregate in Oxford now in groups of 3 or 5, or larger than groups of 3 or 5. The second, to get the school authorities to issue instructions to the students that if they congregate in groups that they are liable for expulsion. If that was done this afternoon, I think that would be a big step forward, and that anybody carrying an arm or arms or a club or anything like that would be liable to punishment. Those kind of steps by you would indicate a interest in maintaining law and order.
Well, General, I'll tell the Chancellor to announce to all the students to keep law and order and keep cool heads. But the trouble is, not only the students, but it's so many thousands of outsiders will be there.
Yeah, but I think if you said, Governor, not just to keep cool heads, but that they couldn't congregate.
How many do you figure on sending down?
Well, that's. I think that the President had some questions for you that he thought that maybe if we could get some answers to them, that would be what depend.
Mr.
President?
General, why don't you? I believe if you and Tom Watkins could get together, it'd help a lot. He's a very reasonable man, and he knows the situation down here as well as anybody living. If you all could get together tomorrow morning, I really think it would pay. I think it would help.
Well, he doesn't have any suggestions. He just told me, Mr. Governor.
Yes, well,
So I don't know what.
I thought he did have.
Well, he didn't. I mean, he said something about sending Meredith, sneaking him into Jackson and getting him registered while all of you were up at Oxford, but that doesn't make much sense, does it?
Well, I don't know why. That's where they'd ordered him to go at first, you know.
Yeah.
You see, there's an order on the minutes, Mr. General, for him to register.
Well, you'd get, as I understand it, you'd get everybody up at Oxford, and then we'd.
Well, that's exactly what Tom Watkins must have had in mind, you know.
Yeah.
Let me talk with Tom and call you back in a little while. He's not but a block from me. That's what he had in mind, I think. And of course, you know how it is, Jackson. Monday, there's no schools going on here, you know. Of course, nobody would be anticipating anyone coming here, you know.
Are you going up to Oxford on Monday? Is that your plan?
Well, that's what I'd planned to do, yes, sir. Lieutenant Governor and I both. We'll have to be up there and try to keep order, you know. And we'll be up there pretty early Monday morning.
Will you?
We'll be up there unless you ask us not to.
Yeah. Well,
You see, we'll be up there, and that's where all the people will be. I thought you and Watkins were going to talk about that kind of situation. then what would be the best thing to do under those conditions, you know?
Yeah. I think, Governor, that the President had some questions that he wanted some answers to make his own determination.
That's right. He wanted to know if I would obey the orders of the court, and I told him I'd have to just study that over. That's a serious thing. I've taken an oath to abide by the laws of this state and our state constitution, the Constitution of the United States. And, General, how can I violate my oath of office? How can I do that and live with the people of Mississippi? You know, they're expecting me to keep my word. That's what I'm up against, and I don't understand
Governor,
why the court wouldn't understand that.
Governor, this is the President speaking.
Yes, sir.
Now, I know that your feeling about the law of Mississippi and the fact that you don't want to carry out that court order. What we really want to have from you, though, is some understanding about whether the state police will maintain law and order. We understand your feeling about the court order and your disagreement with it. But what we're concerned about is how much violence is going to be and what kind of action we'll have to take to prevent it. And I'd like to get assurances from you about that the state police down there will take positive action to maintain law and order. Then we'll know what we have to do.
They'll take positive action, Mr. President, to maintain law and order as best we can.
And now, how good
is... have 220 highway patrolmen.
Right.
And they'll absolutely be unarmed.
Right.
Only one of them will be armed.
Well, no, but the problem is, well, what can they do to maintain law and order and prevent the gathering of a mob and action taken by the mob? What can they do? Can they stop that?
Well, they'll do their best to. They'll do everything in their power to stop it.
Now, what about the suggestions made by the Attorney General in regard to not permitting people to congregate and start a mob?
Well, we'll do our best to keep them from congregating, but that's hard to do, you know.
Well, they just tell them to move along.
Walking up on the sidewalks from different sides of the streets, what are you going to do about it?
Well, now, as I understand it, Governor, you would do everything you can to maintain law and order.
I'll do everything in my power to maintain order.
Right. Now...
And peace. We don't want any shooting down
I
here.
understand. Now, Governor, what about can you maintain this order?
Well, I don't know. That's what I'm worried about. You see, I don't know whether I can or not.
Right.
I couldn't have the other afternoon.
You couldn't.
There was such a mob there, it would have been impossible.
I see.
There were men in trucks and shotguns and all such as that. Not a lot of them, but some we saw. And certain people were just enraged.
Well, now, will you talk...
I just don't understand the situation down here.
Well, the only thing is, I got my responsibility. This is not my order. I just have to carry it out. So I want to get together and try to do it with you in a way which is the most satisfactory and causes the least chance of damage to people in Mississippi. That's my interest.
That's right. Would you be willing to wait a while and let the people cool off on the whole thing?
Until how long?
Let you make a statement to the effect, Mr. President, Mr. General, that under the circumstances existing in Mississippi, that there will be bloodshed. You want to protect the life of James Meredith and all other people. And under the circumstances at this time, it just wouldn't be fair to him or others to try to register him.
Well, then, at what time would it be fair?
Well, we could wait. I don't know. It might be in 2 or 3 weeks. It might cool off.
Well, would you undertake to register him in 2 weeks?
Well, now, you know, I can't undertake to register myself, but you all might make some progress that way.
Yeah, well, we'd be faced with unless we had your support and insurance.
I'm going to cooperate. I might not know when you're going to register me, you know.
I see. Well, now, Governor, what do you want to talk to Mr. Watkins?
I might not know what your plans were. You see.
Do you want to talk to Mr. Watkins then?
I'll be delighted to talk to him, and we'll call you back.
Okay, good.
Call the general back?
Yeah, I'll call the general, and then I'll be around.
All right. I appreciate it so much.
Thanks, Governor.
I thank you for this call.
Thank you, Governor.
All right.
Right.
Landing site.
We can't consider moving Meredith as long as there's a riot outside, because he wouldn't be safe.
Sir?
We couldn't consider moving Meredith if we haven't been able to restore order outside. That's the problem, Governor.
Well, I'll tell you what I'll do, Mr. President.
Yeah.
I'll go up there myself.
Well, now, how long will it take you to get there?
And I'll get a microphone and tell them that you have agreed to be removed.
Now, wait a minute. Wait a minute, Governor. Now, how long is it going to take you to get up there?
About an hour.
Now, I tell you what, if you want to go up there, then you call me from up there, and then we'll decide what we're going to do before you make any speeches about it.
Well, all right.
no sense in
I mean, whatever if you'd authorize.
See, we got an hour to go, and that's not, we may not have an hour, but it won't take you an hour to get up there.
This man has just died.
Did he die?
Yes.
Which one, state police?
That's state police.
Yeah, well, you see, we got to get order up there, and that's what we thought we were going to have.
President, please, why don't you, can't you give an order up there to remove Mayor?
How can I remove him, Governor, when there's a riot in the street, and he may step out of that building and something happen to him? I can't remove him under those conditions. Let's get order up there, then we can do something about Mayor.
We can surround it with plenty of officials.
Well, we've got to get somebody up there now to get order and stop the firing and the shooting. Then you and I will talk on the phone about Meredith. But first, we got to get order.
I'll call and tell them to get every official they can.
That's right. Then you and I will talk when they've got the building, when they've got order there. Then you and I'll talk about what's the best thing to do with Meredith.
All right, then.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, well, our people say that it's still a very strange situation. They wouldn't feel that they could take a chance of taking them outside that building. Now, can we get these fellows? I hear they got some high-powered rifles up there that have been shooting sporadically. Can we get that stopped? How many people have you got there? We hear you only got 50.
Well, I have approximately 200 there now, Mr. President.
You got 200?
Sir, about 200.
Yeah, well, now let me get in touch with my people.
We don't have it. 210 of 12 patrolmen, you see.
I see. Well, now let me get my people back again.
I'm doing everything in the world.
That's right. Well, we got to get this situation under control. That's much more important than anything else.
Well, that's
now,
right.
Let me talk to my people. Let me find out what the situation is there. They called me a few minutes ago and said they had some high-powered rifles there, so we don't want to start moving anybody around.
People are wiring me and calling me saying, "Well, you've given up." I said, I had to say, "No, I'm not giving up. Not giving up any fight."
Yeah, but we don't.
I never give up. I have courage and faith, and we'll win this fight. You understand? That's just the Mississippi people.
Yeah, I understand, but I don't think anybody, even in Mississippi or any place else, wants a lot of people killed.
Oh, no.
And that's what, Governor, that's the most important thing.
I'll issue any statement any time about peace and violence.
Well, now, here's what we could do. Let's get the maximum number of your state police to get that situation so we don't have sporadic firing. I will be in touch with my people, and then you and I will be talking again in a few minutes about see what we got there then.
All right.
Thank you, Governor.
All right.
I'll be back. Hello.
Just one moment, sir. There you are, sir. There's the President.
Hello.
Mr. President.
Yes, Governor.
I just talked with Colonel Birdsong,
right,
who is our director of the Highway Patrol, and he assures me that he has approximately 150 men there now.
Now, we got a report that they're all in their cars 2 or 3 blocks away.
I told him, just like you asked me, to get moving.
I see. Now, can you get them so that we stop this rifle shooting? That's what we got to stop.
Well, he says he's doing all that he can. He says there's strangers in there.
I know. Well, that's what we hear.
And he's calling for 50 more, and that'll put it up around 200.
Can they get those students to go to bed?
Well, he says he's trying to, and I don't think it'll be long before he can get them all to bed.
Okay, well, you stay...
Maybe not, I can't tell.
Well, let's stay right on it. We ought to be... that's what we got to do before we can do anything.
He's reporting constantly to the gentleman who has control of the activities of the troops there.
Yeah.
And he understands that he's doing all he can.
Well, I think it's very important, Governor, aside from this issue, we don't want a lot of people killed just because they, particularly, evidently 2 or 3 guardsmen have been shot, and of course our marshals, and then that state troopers, so we don't want...
Hello?
General Abrams calling the President from Millington, Tennessee.
Hello. Hello.
Here you are, sir.
Yeah.
General Abrams.
Yes, General.
I have a report from General Billingsley.
That's right. Now, the Attorney General has him on the other phone. Is that General Billingsley you got? We got him on the other phone. So we'll be talking...
The company
Right.
arrived on the campus at 2:15 local time.
Right. Okay. Now, General, what about the rest of it? When are these other MPs going to get there, do you know?
The 503rd MPs should arrive at approximately 0430
That's local time there?
local time.
That's, in other words, that's 2 hours.
Time here.
That's the group that's set out by truck, is it?
Yes, sir.
So you're
And they're followed by another MP battalion that should arrive at 5 o'clock. There's just the length of the battalion between them.
In other words, but the next MP group to arrive won't be for 2 hours, is that correct?
That's correct, sir.
And then after that, there'll be some more in a half hour. Then what about that battle group?
Just a moment, sir. No, 6 o'clock, sir.
What? 6 o'clock. Well, now, General, you ought to consider what kind of communication you're going to set up at that airport, because you're going to have people flying in there. Seems to me you ought to have very good communications with that airport as well as the campus.
Yes.
With General, in other words, General Billingsley, you ought to have a communication with the airport. You ought to have a communication with the airport and Billingsley, because we're going to have people flying in there all day tomorrow.
Yes.
And then, of course, we got the problem of transportation and all the rest. So these are all matters that you'll be dealing with, but I think communications is very important.
Yes.
Okay, fine, General. Thank you. Well, now, the thing is, Governor, I want your help in getting these state police to continue to help during the day, because they're their own people. And we're going to have a lot of strange troops in there, and we're going to have paratroopers in and all the rest. And I think the state police should be the key, and that depends on you.
Well, you'll have the whole force that we have.
Well, now you tell them.
Men are not equipped like yours.
I understand that, but during the daytime, they can help keep order on these roads and keep a lot of people from coming in. And I think that that doesn't change your position on the issue, but at least it helps maintain order, which is what we've got to do today.
All right, Mr.
Thank you,
President.
Governor.
I'll stay here now.
Thank you very much. And keep after your state police now.
Well,
Thanks.
I'll call them as soon as we hang up.
Thanks.
Do all they can to keep peace.
Okay, thanks, Governor.
And when will I hear from you again?
I'll be talking to you about noon,
All
my
right.
time.
Thank you so much.
Okay, Governor. Hello.
Good morning, Mr. President.
Morning. I'm just on my way up there. Now, the only question I had was whether there are any additional proclamations or powers, etc., that we might need in the Mississippi matter if it gets worse, and for arresting people and under what charge and what legal penalties they face and so on. For example, we want to arrest General Walker, and I don't know whether we just arrest him under disturbing the peace or whether we arrest him for more than that. I wonder how long are you going to be at the court this morning?
Not beyond 10:30.
Yeah, well then I wonder if we can get more precise information on where we are legally on arresting people, including the governor if necessary and others.
Right.
And what the penalties are, because we might want to announce that on the radio and television, that anyone involved in any demonstration or anything would be subject to this penalty, and then maybe the general could announce it.
Right.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello?
Yes, Mr.
Oh,
President.
yeah, I understood they're having some rioting downtown and so on, and throwing rocks and so on at the troops. Now, how are we doing on our schedule?
Our schedule is still proceeding as I gave it to you, sir.
Yeah. We don't know. Has anybody arrived this morning?
Has anybody arrived this morning on those 1700? Not yet. Due in earliest at what? 10 o'clock their time, is it? Let's see what's the time.
Midnight. That'd be midday.
11:20.
11:20 their time?
Yeah.
That's 1:20 our time,
Yeah.
isn't it? Now, that's what, 1,700 MOA?
Yeah, that, let's see, that first increment is 900, yeah.
And they're doing it 1:20. What group is that?
120, yeah, 120 our time.
What group
That
is
is the 82nd Airport.
I see. Okay. Fine. All right. Are you going to come over to this ceremony?
No, I thought I'd better stay here, sir.
I see. Well, now, I talked to Secretary McNamara. He said something about you might be able to have 20,000 troops by midnight.
That's right. We're taking steps to get them in. The orders have been given. The only limiting factor may be the weather, which is closing in, but we're developing alternates so that we can get them in some way or other.
I see. You mean you might send them to Memphis and then...
If we can't get into Memphis, we'll try Columbus. Now, this may add a little bit of time in getting them back, so we may not be able to finally make it by 12 o'clock, but we'll do everything we can to get them as soon as possible.
I see. Okay, fine.
Just a second. Bob is here.
Hello, Bobby.
Yes. Oh, this is the president.
Oh,
Yeah.
Mr. President.
Yeah.
I think that with the priority the Air Force is giving this, and we're diverting all our MAX aircraft and our troop carrier aircraft, we can get them there by midnight.
Right. I see. Are you coming over for this?
Sir, I just gave my citation to Raj, and he will read it. I thought I'd stay
Okay.
here tomorrow.
Right. I'm fine.
Thank you.
Good evening, my fellow citizens. The orders of the court in the case of Meredith versus Fair are beginning to be carried out. Mr. James Meredith is now in residence on the campus of the University of Mississippi. This has been accomplished thus far without the use of National Guard or other troops, and it is to be hoped that the law enforcement officers of the state of Mississippi and the federal marshals will continue to be sufficient in the future. All students, members of the faculty, and public officials in both Mississippi and the nation will be able, it is hoped, to return to their normal activities with full confidence in the integrity of American law. This is as it should be, for our nation is founded on the principle that observance of the law is the eternal safeguard of liberty, and defiance of the law is the surest road to tyranny. The law which we obey includes the final rulings of the courts, as well as the enactment of our legislative bodies. Even among law-abiding men, few laws are universally loved, but they are uniformly respected and not resisted. Americans are free, in short, to disagree with the law, but not to disobey it. For in a government of laws and not of men, no man, however prominent or powerful, and no mob, however unruly or boisterous, is entitled to defy a court of law. If this country should ever reach the point where any man or group of men, by force or threat of force, could long deny the commands of our court and our Constitution, then no law would stand free from doubt. No judge would be sure of his writ, and no citizen would be safe from his neighbors. In this case, in which the United States government was not until recently involved, Mr. Meredith brought a private suit in federal court against those who were excluding him from the university. A series of federal courts, all the way to the Supreme Court, repeatedly ordered Mr. Meredith's admission to the university. When those orders were defied, and those who sought to implement them threatened with arrest and violence, the United States Court of Appeals, consisting of Chief Judge Tuttle of Georgia, Judge Hutchison of Texas, Judge Reeves of Alabama, Judge Jones of Florida, Judge Brown of Texas, Judge Wisdom of Louisiana, Judge Gerwin of Alabama, and Judge Bell of Georgia, made clear the fact that the enforcement of its order had become an obligation of the United States government. Even though this government had not originally been a party to the case, my responsibility as president was therefore inescapable. I accept it. My obligation under the Constitution and the statutes of the United States was and is to implement the orders of the court with whatever means are necessary and with as little force and civil disorder as the circumstances permit. It was for this reason that I federalized the Mississippi National Guard as the most appropriate instrument, should any be needed, to preserve law and order while United States Marshals carried out the orders of the court and prepared to back them up with whatever other civil or military enforcement might have been required. I deeply regret the fact that any action by the executive branch was necessary in this case, but all other avenues and alternatives, including persuasion and conciliation, had been tried and exhausted. Had the police powers of Mississippi been used to support the orders of the court instead of deliberately and unlawfully blocking them, had the University of Mississippi fulfilled its standard of excellence by quietly admitting this applicant in conformity with what so many other southern state universities have done for so many years, a peaceable and sensible solution would have been possible without any federal intervention. This nation is proud of the many instances in which governors, educators, and everyday citizens from the South have shown to the world the gains that can be made by persuasion and goodwill in a society ruled by law. Specifically, I would like to take this occasion to express the thanks of this nation to those Southerners who have contributed to the progress of our democratic development in the entrance of students, regardless of race, to such great institutions as the state-supported universities of Virginia, North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Texas, Louisiana, Tennessee, Arkansas, and Kentucky. I recognize that the present period of transition and adjustment in our nation's Southland is a hard one for many people. Neither Mississippi nor any other southern state deserves to be charged with all the accumulated wrongs of the last 100 years of race relations. To the extent that there has been failure, the responsibility for that failure must be shared by us all, by every state, by every citizen. Mississippi and her university, moreover, are noted for their courage, for their contribution of talent and thought to the affairs of this nation. This is the state of Lucius Lamar and many others who have placed the national good ahead of sectional interest. This is the state which had 4 Medal of Honor winners in the Korean War alone. In fact, the Guard unit federalized this morning early is part of the 155th Infantry, one of the 10 oldest regiments in the Union, and one of the most decorated for sacrifice and bravery in 6 wars. In 1945, a Mississippi sergeant, Jake Lindsay, was honored by an unusual joint session of the Congress. I close, therefore, with this appeal to the students of the university, the people who are most concerned. You have a great tradition to uphold, a tradition of honor and courage, one on the field of battle and on the gridiron, as well as the university campus. You have a new opportunity to show that you are men of patriotism and integrity. For the most effective means of upholding the law is not the state policeman or the marshals or the National Guard. It is you. It lies in your courage to accept those laws with which you disagree, as well as those with which you agree. The eyes of the nation and all the world are upon you and upon all of us. And the honor of your university and state are in the balance. I am certain the great majority of the students will uphold that honor. There is, in short, no reason why the books on this case cannot now be quickly and quietly closed in the manner directed by the court. Let us preserve both the law and the peace. And then, healing those wounds that are within, we can turn to the greater crises that are without and stand united as one people in our pledge to man's freedom. Thank you, and good night.